Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into something that sometimes feels a bit overlooked in academic writing, but our source says it's absolutely key: consistency.
Exactly. It's more than just spelling and grammar. Way more.
Right. It's about the whole structure, isn't it? Making sure your argument is solid from start to finish.
Precisely. And we're looking at a great little resource for this, a PDF checklist called a mini checklist for ensuring consistency in your academic writing. It came from the Instagram account Academic Practices.
Okay, academic practices. Got it. So, practical tips.
Very practical. It lays out why consistency is so fundamental for getting published, for making sense, basically for having any kind of impact.
So our mission today is to unpack that. Why is it so vital? And we'll walk through this checklist from the source so you can use these points to, boost your own papers before submission.
Yeah, think of it as understanding what reviewers are really looking for, maybe even subconsciously sometimes. It's about that coherent feel.
All right, let's dive in. Where does the guide start? What's the big claim?
Well, it makes a pretty bold statement right up front. Consistency isn't just polish you out at the end.
Okay.
It's framed as a fundamental criterion, just as important as your data quality or the theory you're using. It directly impacts credibility, clarity, publishability.
Wow, okay. So not optional. But what does consistency really mean in this context if it's not just typos?
Good question. The source is clear. It operates on multiple levels. It's not just one thing.
Multiple levels?
Yeah. It's about creating this unified whole where every piece connects logically. It's the deep structure, not just the surface stuff.
Okay, that sounds potentially complex, but I guess the checklist helps break it down.
It does. It gives 5 key areas, 5 levels to check. And the first one is maybe the most obvious, but also easy to mess up: aligning your research questions with your conclusions.
Ah, right. You ask something at the start, you better answer that specific thing at the end. Seems simple enough.
It does, but you'd be surprised. The guide points out the problem. The reader finishes your paper, and they're kind of left wondering, hang on, what happened to those questions they started with?
Yeah, I can see that. You get caught up in the findings and forget to tie it back.
Exactly. If the conclusion feels disconnected, it breaks that core link, makes the whole study feel unfinished, or like it went off track.
Like showing a map for Paris at the start and ending with a description of Rome, maybe?
Something like that. So how do you fix it? The checklist gives specific actions. First, in your conclusion, you need to explicitly refer back to those initial research questions.
Don't just assume the reader remembers.
No, remind them. Spell it out. Second, you have to show how your results actually answer those questions. Connect the dots for the reader, point by point, if you need to.
Okay, make the link obvious.
And critically, the guide warns against introducing totally new ideas or big new discussions in the conclusion, stuff you haven't already built up to.
Right. The conclusion isn't the place for a whole new tangent.
Its job is to close the loop on what you started, using the journey you've already taken them on.
That makes a lot of sense. It forces accountability to your own setup. Okay, so that's level 1, questions meet conclusions. What's level 2?
Level 2 is about something that runs through the entire paper, using your key concepts consistently.
Ah, terminology, like calling the same thing by different names.
Precisely. The source highlights how confusing this is. Say you use perceived value in the lit review, but then start talking about consumer benefit in the results section, meaning the same thing.
That'd throw me off. Is it a new idea or just sloppy wording?
Exactly. It creates ambiguity, makes your thinking seem, well, fuzzy, even if it isn't intended. It's like building with Lego bricks, but suddenly switching to slightly different blocks without saying why. The structure looks wobbly.
Good analogy, undermines clarity. So how does the checklist say to keep concepts tight?
Clear steps again. First, define your key terms early on. Make it crystal clear what you mean.
Nail it down.
And then commit to using only those terms. Resist the urge for synonyms if they might carry slightly different baggage in the field.
Okay, stick to the script you wrote for yourself.
Right. Second, be consistent with abbreviations. If you introduce SMEs for small and medium-sized enterprises, use SMEs every time after that. Don't flip-flop.
Simple but effective.
And third, make sure your underlying conceptual framework, the main ideas guiding your work, doesn't sort of shift focus or meaning halfway through without you explaining why. If your understanding evolves, signal that change clearly. Don't just let it happen through inconsistent terms.
That feels so important. Your concepts are the building blocks of your argument. If they're unstable, the whole thing can crumble. Okay, level 3. This one's about theory, you said.
Yeah, it's ensuring your theoretical framework is properly reflected when you interpret your results.
Okay, explain that. Lots of papers outline theory at the start.
They do. They explain the models, the constructs, relationships, but then you get to the discussion section where they talk about what they found, and poof, the theory seems to disappear.
Ah, like you built this theoretical scaffolding, but then you just described the view without mentioning the structure holding you up.
That's a great way to put it. The discussion needs to circle back and actively engage with those theoretical ideas you introduced. The source stresses theory isn't just for setting up hypotheses.
It should help you make sense of the findings.
Yes, it should be an active tool for interpretation. If there's a disconnect, the theory section just feels like a box-ticking exercise, not really integrated.
So how does the checklist push you to make that connection happen?
It prompts you to ask yourself some hard questions as you write the discussion. Are you actually revisiting those theoretical points when explaining your results?
Looking back.
Yeah. Are you looking at whether your findings support the theory? Or maybe contradict it? Or perhaps extend it in some interesting way?
So engaging with it.
Actively. The key question is the theory doing real work in your analysis, or was it just window dressing in the introduction? You need to show how your findings speak back to that broader theoretical conversation.
That's definitely a hallmark of strong scholarly work. It's not just, here's what I found, but here's what it means in light of what we thought we knew. Okay, crucial stuff. What's level 4?
Level 4 is all about methodology, ensuring your choices are justified, and this is key, followed through consistently.
Right, this sounds like, did you actually do what you claimed you'd do in the method section? And was it the right thing to do anyway?
That's it, exactly. The source emphasizes every choice, sampling, data collection tools, analysis techniques needs to be explained clearly, and then you need to show you actually implemented it that way, consistently.
The method section is your plan, your recipe.
Precisely. Reviewers need to trust you followed that recipe, and that the recipe actually makes sense for the meal you were trying to cook, which is answering your research questions.
And if there's a mismatch between plan and execution.
Big hit to credibility. The source gives an example. Say you describe a deep, qualitative approach, aiming for rich understanding.
Okay.
But then your results section is mostly just simple counts or percentages. No real interpretive depth shown.
Ah, I see. The analysis doesn't match the stated approach.
Exactly. Or you say you did some more structured interviews, but the analysis reads like you just pulled out keywords. It makes reviewers doubt if you really understood the method you claim to use.
Right. So how does the checklist help verify this?
It pushes you to check a few things. First, is your method section detailed enough? Step by step, clear on how things were done. Second, were the analysis methods genuinely appropriate for your research design and the data you gathered?
Using the right tool for the job.
Did you use the right stats test? Was a qualitative analysis suitable? And third, you have to meticulously scan for any contradictions between the plan and the methods and the execution recorded later. Did you really do what you said you did?
That careful cross-checking sounds vital. The method section is your promise of rigor. Break it, and trust evaporates. Okay, brings us to the 5th and final level.
Level 5, citations and references. Consistent and accurate.
Ah, the bane of many researchers' existence. But yeah, I've heard horror stories about desk rejections just for sloppy references.
The source absolutely backs that up. It says referencing inconsistencies are a super common reason for rejection. It might seem like just formatting,
but it signals something deeper.
Reviewers often see it that way. If you weren't careful with the references, were you careful with your data, your analysis, your concepts? It becomes a proxy for overall scholarly diligence.
Okay, fair enough. What are the typical mistakes, source flags?
Oh, the usual suspects. Mismatched author names or dates between the text and the list. References cited in the text, but whoops, missing from the final list. Or vice versa, entries in the list that aren't cited anywhere.
Yeah, the orphans and the ghosts of referencing.
Exactly. And inconsistent formatting within the list itself. Or mixing styles, suddenly throwing in an MLA format in an APA paper. Even tiny things like journal abbreviations can matter if the style guide is precise.
It feels painstaking, but I get why it matters now, framed as a signal of care. So how does the checklist advise tackling this beast?
The big recommendation is using reference management software. EndNote, Zotero, Mendeley, tools like that.
Lifesavers for many.
They really help standardize things and cut down manual errors, but crucially, they aren't foolproof. You still need to check. The source insists. Double check Every in-text citation matches an entry in the list, and every list entry is cited in the text.
That manual cross-reference is still needed then.
Absolutely. And the final piece is meticulously follow the specific style guide the journal demands. APA, Chicago, MLA, Vancouver, whatever it is, get their guidelines, follow them to the letter. Punctuation, caps, order, everything.
No improvising.
No improvising. Don't assume the software got it 100% perfect without a final human check against the official style guide.
Wow. Okay, so this mini checklist, while it sounds simple point by point, really does cover the whole landscape of academic writing, from the big picture argument down to the commas and the references.
It really does. And the guide concludes powerfully by saying, look, consistency isn't just a final touch-up. It's baked into rigorous scholarship right from the start.
It's not just about tidiness. It boosts credibility, clarity, makes the whole thing hang together better.
Exactly. Using a checklist like this one from Academic Practices, ideally while you write and revise, not just frantically at the end, it can seriously improve the quality, the persuasiveness, the professionalism of your paper.
It helps make sure all the hard work you did on the research actually comes through clearly.
Right. It prevents the reader or reviewer from getting tripped up or confused by inconsistencies, letting them focus on your actual contribution.
And it's interesting how these levels connect, isn't it? Like you said, if your concepts aren't stable, level 2, it's going to be hard to convincingly link results back to theory, level 3.
Or if your method's execution is shaky, level 4, it undermines your results, making it tough to answer those initial questions confidently. Level 1. It's all interconnected.
So thinking about you, the listener, using this kind of framework isn't just about dodging rejections, though that's nice. It's about making sure your ideas, your findings, your unique contribution actually lands with the reader.
It helps them follow your thinking. It signals care and respect for the process.
So the big takeaway from this deep dive, drawing on the Academic Practices checklist, is pretty clear. Consistency across your argument, your terms, your theory, your methods, even your references, that it's not a minor detail, it's fundamental.
Which leads to maybe a final thought for you to chew on, stemming from all this. How can you build this consistency mindset into your writing process earlier, not just as a final check?
Yeah, like making it part of the outlining or drafting stage.
Exactly. Thinking about consistency across all these levels from the get-go, how might that fundamentally strengthen the impact and clarity of your work right from the beginning rather than trying to patch it up later?